and welcome back to another episode with Fight Night Picks. As always, we're brought to you by SimBody. Vertiball is now SimBody. If you head on over to their website, simbody.com, you're going to get all the great products that you know and love, including the SimBody Vertiroller and the Vertiball that you have seen most likely here in studio. Look at that. Place it, lock it, attach it, Vertiball, all sorts of great stuff over there if you want to roll out those old tired muscles and you don't want to go with that old lacrosse ball. They're also coming out with that very new product that you can see right in front of you. And if I head on over to my cart, look at that. I've already got a Vertiball over there. A little bit of a deal right there. And if you hit the try for 60 days risk-free, use the promo code FNP, you're going to get 20% off your order with that code FNP at simbody.com. You're really, really helping out another local company here in New Brunswick, Canada. Can't wait for it. The new name, SimBody at simbody.com. And as we always say, let's get into it.
A last look at the big card. Be sure to head into the chat and have your say. Let's get into it and join in Fight Night Picks ? Kicks.
Oh boy. And just like that, we're back. We're set. We're live with Fight Night Picks ? Kicks. Matt Allen, I am in a nondescript hotel room. I'm getting set for your Saskatchewan Roughriders at Touchdown Atlantic. It should be great. You're at home, and listen, we are live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter. We're really hitting up the internet with this show. I can't wait for it. It is a big-time card. Obviously, you're on ABC, so the world is watching. The eyes are on you. I can't watch any of this card because I'm away. Malone Hart with a giant super chat. Let's get the super chat rally going early. Let's get into it. I'm trying to be halfway quiet, but there's a little bit of an echo in the room. But again, like, this is one of those ones. We've only done one remote episode of Kicks. I was camping. I was at Fundy National Park. So that was fun. And I'm in Nova Scotia this week. But Matt, I am really looking forward to this card. We previewed the heck out of this one at the start of the week, but it should be a good one. And I'm sure, you know, when we recap it, when we get a chance to watch it, we're going to enjoy it too, just like the fine folks that are out there.
I feel like I'm doing a very important interview with someone in a safe house right now. Like, this is unprecedented stuff. I'm really excited for the card, though. We've both been talking about this card like it is a pay-per-view. Like, just seeing that UFC on ABC 3, it's fresh, it's new. Because even with ESPN now, we're into the hundreds at this point. I'm so excited for this card, though, because like I said, it does feel like that half a pay-per-view. It's not really one, but it's way better than your average fight night card. I mean, there are fights scattered all the way throughout this whole entire card. Fights like Dustin Jacoby versus Jung, like, that's a main card fight on the majority of fight night cards that we get. So I am incredibly excited for this whole entire event.
Yeah, it should be a great time. And I mean, like I said, YouTube, but also on Twitter at Fight Night Picks. And then you can find us on Facebook. We're showing this one, Fight Night Picks, little known Facebook out there. We've got, is it Gelbies? Morning from Minnesota. Mr. Bogan saying, why have they done this card so early? That's a good question. I don't know what sporting events are going on in the rest of the world, but I do know Touchdown Atlantic very, very early. If you're a CFL fan,
if I may,
Novak,
next weekend's card's early too, because the London one, I think.
Yeah, next weekend's card's really early, and I think it's about the same start time. I think it's like a noon start, so should be fun. Joe is saying I'm liking this early start. I kind of am too. It's not too bad. Sharif is having a good time, and then just my 2 cents trying to figure me out. Again, it's a Holiday Inn, and I'm going to a football game, so you got to get it in before the card starts. So, Matt, what people are usually familiar with when we're, you know, together, when we're doing the show, we go through the fight of the night screen. We're going to skip that one for this week, and we're just going to focus on some of these fights and go through the banners that we have. But again, like, really glad that everybody can join in with the show, join in early, toss a like, tell a friend, toss a like, easy stuff. But it should be an interesting card, and I'm going to try and go through the chat as we go along. But yeah, this is going to be a very, very busy one. So if we start at the start of the card, Jessica Penne taking on Emily Ducote. And this is a fun one. I mean, Emily Ducote making her UFC debut on somewhat a short notice. This fight was announced just a little over a month ago in early June. It was originally supposed to be Brianna Van Buren, now Brianna Fortino, taking on Penne. So it would have been, would you say wrestle boxer? Brianna Van Buren, Brianna Fortino, she never fights. We haven't seen her in forever. So she really is somebody that puts the pressure on, tries to wrestle. For Penne, I think that would have been a good stylistic matchup because you get the best out of her grappling and something like that. With Emily Ducote, she likes to put the pressure on, but she fights behind a jab, and she likes to throw some combinations and when her hands start to fly, she's very accurate. She does show up well defensively. I guess the one knock on her earlier on in her career when she was at a point 6-5, it was her wrestling defense and the fact that she really couldn't get her striking going. So that has come around. It has come full circle. The Goat Ram is saying, why is Emily's nickname? Oh, come on. Now that's nothing. It's Gordina, which is little fat girl. So that is what it means. But when it does come to this overall fight, Matt, again, Jessica Penne, not the biggest on striking defense. She will throw offense and she will throw those weird, like from the hip straight shots that come at odd angles. So they do catch some people off guard because they're just expecting somebody who's going to grapple. So that could make it tough for Emily Ducote. I think Penny's going to bring the fight to her. So I think this is going to be a decent fight, but overall, it just feels like a sketchy one. I mean, a lot of these, unranked women's fighters here recently kicking off cards, it has been the underdog hitting, which could be a good opportunity for Penne in this one.
And I do see this being a close fight. That's the thing. On a lot of these fights, neither one is known for like incredible knockout power. Neither one's this, incredibly slick submission ace. Like, they're good fighters, but I wouldn't necessarily say that their chances for a finish in this fight is all that high. And I do think that's why it does tend to cater towards close fights. This would have been a perfect fight, though, if Penne was just a little bit more active. If you could have, hey, this is someone who had fought for the title. She's been around for a long time, had some wins, had some losses, but now we have this new, younger fighter coming in. I think that would have been a much better storyline because right now it's Jessica Penne, who has not looked good for a while. And yes, she's been able to pick up wins, but I wouldn't necessarily say that she looked like the fighter who was coming off the Ultimate Fighter, who people thought, hey, like she could maybe even win a title in this division. I just think for Emily Ducote, she has a much higher potential to just do damage in this fight. And I like what you said about her jab. Not only is it a good jab, it just keeps her opponents off for a lot of the times. And with her suspect takedown defense, with traditional takedowns, I do think that her jab and her range finding tools are going to help her a lot in this fight with Penne. Just keeping her away from her, doing enough to get some points on the judges' scorecards, doing enough to edge out the rounds here or there, and probably doing enough to edge out like a 29-28 victory.
Yeah, this is very much one of those pop and popcorn type of fights. I mean, for those in Holiday Inns across the country and the world, I've got cashews and a Zevia Energy. So no pop and popcorn for me, but we'll stick it with that. When you do have a look at the odds, and I'm using like the multimedia here, I've got the computer, the laptop with everything going. I got the cell phone going with everything. So we're doing our best. We're doing our best.
Craig doesn't know how windows work on a laptop.
Yeah, but you open too many windows and then you slow your computer down. See, you got to come on, man. So Emily Ducote open -135, -162 right now. For Penne open +115, +135. And if we have a look at the votes, and this is on our Instagram at Fight Night Picks, 56% going with Emily Ducote versus 44% with Penne. I have Ducote. I did like the takedown defense that I've seen out of her last number of fights. When she made the transition over to Invicta, if you look at Ducote, again, like you said, she's defending these traditional takedowns. Very good first move. I mean, if you like to watch somebody like a Michael Johnson fight, you saw him in his fight against Alain Patrick, someone that I always go back to. He's just olaying it. He's getting out of the way. He's really having fast hips, and he's really defending them well. Emily Ducote is able to do that. The one thing that scares me, though, is once she gets into those positions, then she can get held up against the fence. She can get clinched, and sometimes she has a hard time breaking that clinch. That's a spot that Jessica Penne does very well. Raphael Blay, hitting it up. Keep up your good job. Let's get it. So, Raphael, with the giant super chat, that is much appreciated. So thank you very much. William saying, hit the like over there in the comment section. And JB Bet saying, I got to get up to it. I look like a dad. Now, I don't know about that. I mean, we just got to cut it out. But Matt, when we do focus on this one, again, I have Ducote. Any surprise? Like, I'm not switching up the pick here or anything.
No, I've got Ducote. I've been pretty confident in Ducote all week. I just don't think Jessica Penne can do a lot to damage her opponent. It's just kind of the truth. Like, she can get submissions, but she doesn't really do anything during the rounds that can really hurt you or put water in the basement, like Teddy Atlas would say, that would really help her on later in the fight. Again, fighting atom weights or fighting smaller straw weights does tend to help her because she is really big for this division, but I still like Emily Ducote quite a bit.
All right, so you're going with Ducote, and so am I. Matt, our next fight, we have the body snatcher, Dwight Grant. He's taking on Dustin Stoltzfus. And when we focus in on this fight, Matt, it really is weird. I mean, for Dwight Grant, he got finished just a few months ago, and I was kind of going through my list of notes, and I was looking at, next weekend's fights, and I want to make sure there's some guys that have been finished in like the last 3-4 months, and then we're just throwing them into the fire. And Dwight Grant's one of those guys. He had that wild fight against Sergey Kandashko. And if you focus in on Dwight Grant fights, he's dropped in the past. I mean, you look at his fight against Danny Rodriguez, where he almost gets a finish, and then Rodriguez rallies. I look at Dwight Grant, gets finished at 170, comes in here this weekend fit and ready. Sean McMinn hitting it up with a super sticker. So that is a very much appreciated Sean McMinn. It's funny because when you do this on StreamYard, you can't see what the sticker is. So it just says super sticker. But Sean, it is appreciated. But for Dwight Grant, 37 years old, 184.4, you like to see that on the scale. And when we focus in on Dwight Grant's style, it very much is low volume, high power. And when you look at a guy like Dustin Stoltzfus, and I know we kind of traded barbs at the start of the week and we goofed and we gaffed, but you look at Dustin Stoltzfus finishes and the amount of and the variability, I guess, of his submission wins. I mean, a lot of fun and a lot more to be desired as well, because he's 0-3 in the UFC. It hasn't worked out. It's been against guys like Adolfo Vieira. It's been against Gerald Meerschaert, and they're tricky guys, especially when that's your game is your grappling and you can't do it. And then you're just stuck striking, trying to think one step ahead. I think that's really been his issue. I just want to hit it up, Matt. Monaco Remodeling, hitting up that big super chat, throwing out the research and saying that the ATL is checking in. Matt, I'm a sneaker guy. The ATL is sneaker hub.
Oh, for sure. Here's the thing.
But yeah, go ahead.
Neither one of these guys are consistent or trustworthy. Like, I wouldn't trust Dwight Grant's fighting style with my money. Maybe Dwight Grant's a good dude, but not his fighting style, because that's the thing. Low volume, high power just sucks to watch. It's great when it lands, but there's always, you can just tell that there's more that just hasn't really been revealed yet. It's like that show, Let's Make a Deal. Do you want what's in box number 1 or what's behind the curtain? Dwight Grant is what's behind the curtain. It could be really good, or it could be those like weird little goblin things holding a goat. And that's about it. And for Dustin Stoltzfus,
you're conflating two different shows, man.
What was that one where they had to hit the button and there was like the red little
no
guy?
whammy, no whammy?
No, yes, okay, there. So I'm putting those two together. But for Dustin, this is my problem. If you are a very good grappler, and I know that he is, I don't care if you're fighting other grapplers in the UFC. You should have some levels of success against them. We've seen other grapplers have success against Gerald Meerschaert before. I know Gerald Meerschaert's a really good submission artist.
Yeah,
we both like
Shamaev.
But no, like Gerald Meerschaert's not a guy who it's the second the fight hits the mat, you're all of a sudden going to get submitted by him. Like you can get into long, drawn out grappling sequences with him, and you can end up on top and getting the better of them. I just don't have much confidence in either one of these fighters, if I'm being completely honest. I do like the fact that Dwight Grant looked really good at 185. I thought on the scales physically, he didn't look drained whatsoever, which is no surprise. He's basically just cutting 15 less pounds, but I do think that will help his overall durability in this fight. I don't see this being a very high volume fight from either guy. I can see both men being very, very tentative, because let's say Stoltzfus does just rush in. Well, we know what's going to happen. He's going to eat a big counter shot, go down, and if he goes 0-4 in the UFC, I really doubt they're going to give him the opportunity to go 0-5 afterwards. So I think both these guys realize just how important this fight's going to be, but I am ever so slightly going to stick with my pick of Dwight Grant, because I do think his takedown defense is good enough to where he can keep this fight on the feet. And I do think that if these guys do end up just going, okay, one shot for one shot, well, the one shot of Dwight Grant lands a lot harder than the one shot of Dustin Stoltzfus, even though Dwight Grant is moving up a weight class.
Matt, I mean, I'm kind of surprised. I'm having a look at the odds. Dwight Grant open -175. He's -105. Apparently, there's confidence in my guy, Dustin Stoltzfus, who's now at a -114, who is the favorite. So I thought I had the sneaky underdog pick, and now all of a sudden I've got the favorite, and I don't feel as confident in it anymore. Matt, I want to hit up the chat because it is going nuts so far for an early morning on a Saturday. Billy Brown saying Boston Pizza's famous in Canada, but I ain't ever heard of it here. I'll tell you what, Billy Brown, I tell everybody I travel with, I hate Boston Pizza. Don't ever take me to a Boston Pizza. I actually despise Boston Pizza. And listen, if there was a sponsorship opportunity, maybe I'd change my views. But yeah, they're in every city. Like if you go to the West, there's like one on every street corner. They love them out West.
Next week, we're going to be like peddling cactus cut fries. You watch.
Yeah. Phoenix is saying Stoltzfus going to utilize that Luta Libre black belt. That's funny. And Thompson, do you prefer early cards? I do when I'm home, but I'm not home, so it kind of sucks. I can't watch it. 59% of the fans have Stoltzfus on our Instagram at Fight Night Picks, 41% Grant. So we're split on this pick. I like Dustin Stoltzfus again. with all of the grappling. I agree with you. Dwight Grant doesn't have the worst takedown defense. We've seen him struggle against pressure and chain guys. I go back to that terrible fight against Zach Otto way back when, and that was really Dwight Grant's problem. Like he couldn't get the power shots working. He was defending the takedowns. He had a really heavy work rate against him in that fight, and he couldn't really figure it out. So I'm going to go with the side of youth, the guy that's fought at 185 for a long time, and I'm going to go with Dustin Stoltzfus. Rob Lawrence saying same with Jack Asters everywhere in Canada here. Not true. Jack Asters, none in Fredericton. There's two in the Halifax region. There's one in Dartmouth and there's one in Bayers Lake. So they got it on point here. But New Brunswick, there's no Jack Asters. Neither is there in Moncton or St. John.
Support local restaurants anyways. They're way better.
Yeah, that's my thing. Diners and local. Dustin Jacoby's taking on Jung. It's a fun fight. I got to say this, Matt, before we break this one down. This has been the most contentious fight all week, and there's so many supporters on either side of it. So I threw it out there when I put it on Instagram and said as much, and then the votes came in 53% Jacoby to 47% Jung. But this was the most discussed fight this week. So I want to hear from everybody over there in the comment section, because this one's been like, there are people that are very passionate about this one. It's a good fight, really good fight in middleweight. Light heavyweight.
It's really nice to see that these guys are getting, maybe not a push, but they are getting some fanfare, because for Jung and Dustin Jacoby, very talented fighters, and it feels like their fan bases aren't as big as they probably should be for how skilled they are in this division. And this is a fun fight, because the winner is probably going to occupy that famous, hey, you're ranked 15 today, you might not be tomorrow, but at least you're going to be in the rankings every now and then. And Jacoby is such an interesting fighter, because on his best fights, God, his striking looks really good. He's got crisp strikes. He can throw for combinations. He can throw with volume. He has power. He has a decent work rate. It's not one that's going to get better as the fight goes on. Not going to fall off a cliff either. Just going to be somewhat steady. And for a good power puncher, that's really all you can ask, because a lot of guys will have a lot of power. They carry it early, and then as the fight progresses, it tends to fall off a cliff. Now, in this fight, I could see this just being a knock him down, drag him out kind of a brawl between these guys, because I do think Jung's going to be the one moving forward, going to try to pressure Jacoby. We've seen Jacoby strike with his back up against the cage quite a bit throughout his career. I know that was a big point that you had brought up earlier on in the week about how he's really good at getting that tie clinch, circling his back off the cage, and then he can unload some of his own strikes. I think that's going to be a key that's really going to come up in this fight quite a bit, because I do think Jung will be the one pressuring. Now, normally the one who's pressuring or the one leading the dance is the one that I would predict, but I do really like the counter shots out of Dustin Jacoby, and I do think that he's a fighter who, okay, if you're a pure wrestler, he might not be able to defend every single takedown attempt. But if you're a striker who dabbles in wrestling, and if you're just another one of these well-rounded guys, I do think Jacoby has good enough takedown defense to where, okay, he can defend the takedowns of Jung, force him to get a little bit tired as this fight goes on. And if these guys do end up getting into some 50-50 exchanges on the feet, I don't think Jung can stand up to the power of Dustin Jacoby. We saw him get wobbled by Sam Alvey. By smiling Sam Alvey, a guy with a smiley face.
Yeah, again, JSP lost to Joe Lozon. I think there's anomalies out there.
If you get hit by Sam Alvey and he hurts you, Dustin Jacoby's going to put you to sleep.
I think that was one of those ones. He really picked it up. He had the 10-8 in the third round. He really rallied back. Like, I just consider that a bit of an anomaly for Jung. And I want to go into the comments, Matt, because we had super chats up there that we didn't get a chance to stop at. Malone Hart with the Jung and a lot of exclamation marks. Thank you, Malone Hart. And Billy Brown saying, get you some good za. There's some good za down here. But again, I see a lot of people, kind of going both ways on this one. So Giancarlo Schmidt's talking about the fact that Dustin Jacoby hasn't lost in years, and you're not wrong. But Jung's on a 14-fight win streak, and he hasn't lost in years and years and years. He had that draw against Sam Alvey. Dustin Jacoby had that draw against Ion Kutsalaba, where he get 10-8'd in the first round, and then he rallied back. Now, did the judges have it all 10-8s? Well, regardless, what you thought of that fight, I thought it was 10-8. But Matt, again, we have a look at this one. When we made the video originally, Jung was an underdog at plus 122. He's now the favorite at minus 118. And when we look at Dustin Jacoby, he now sits around a minus 102. So I had Jacoby at the start of the week. I have Jacoby now. Like I said, talking about a guy who has decent volume, has good leg kicks. Giancarlo Schmidt. Craig, I'm coming back to the chat after the fight. Why, pal? I'm picking him too, guy. I don't see we're on the same page, bud. But when we do look at this one, Matt, I do like Jacoby for all the reasons that you had mentioned. But this is one of those ones, like we talk about, first fight on the card, Penne Ducote. Really close fight. Unranked strawweights, there's not a lot of them. Second fight, you have Dwight Grant taking on Dustin Stoltzfus. We're split on it. This one I see as a very, very competitive fight. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I have Dustin Jacoby by a slim margin, but no action on this fight.
And I agree with what you said. The last two fights that we broke down, there's a good chance that they aren't aesthetically pleasing to watch. I can almost guarantee you this fight's going to be awesome. Like, I really do think Dustin Jacoby versus Jung is one of the best fights on the card because, again, both guys move forward, both guys have great power in their hands, and both guys are willing to eat a shot to give a shot. And that's normally a recipe for a really good fight.
Giancarlo's excited. I'm just very confident in this pick. Well, fair enough. Hey, if you're confident, you're confident. I respect that, Giancarlo Schmidt. So, Matt, when we have a look at this next fight, we have Herbert Burns taking on Billy Algeo, Senor Perfecto, the King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and a couple of Pennsylvania guys on this card. Like, it's just like that stupid ad that they play during these fight nights where they go, a couple of Louisiana boys chopping it up, and then they never change it. You could be like Bill Algeo.
You see an RC, though.
Bill Algeo, Dustin Stoltzfus, a couple of Pennsylvania guys chopping it up about the sport they love. But when you do look at this fight, Matt, originally it was supposed to be Bill Algeo taking on a different opponent. And we were supposed to get a fight against Billy Q. Yet Herbert Burns taking on Hussein Ashkabov, a guy who I think is just going to have a bad career in the UFC. I do. Like, he's 23-0 and he's all the hotness and he's all hyped up. I have yet to see it. But when I do look at this fight, Matt, now you have Burns, you have Algeo. Burns been out for a very long time, got finished in his last fight almost 2 years ago. Bill Algeo, bad takedown defense, could definitely get him caught against Herbert Burns. I like Algeo with the volume and the amount that he puts out on his shots. I don't like Herbert Burns striking. I know he has that crazy flying knee knockout against Nate Landwehr. But when I do look at this fight, Matt, I'm going to go with the more proven commodity, the spot more often that throws more volume next to the guy that I haven't seen very often. But again, if Herbert Burns is going to win, you watch the fight and I know you made fun of me and I know you kind of thought less of it. If you do look at Herbert Burns' last win and he is a rear naked choke guy, he's going to get your back. He's going to do it very quick. But the fight that he had against Evan Dunham, when he just ducked under a punch, grabbed his back and then lights out, you're done. That was very impressive. Like I said, I still have Bill Algeo in this one, but I think it's going to be an interesting fight in Clash of Styles.
There's redwood trees younger than Evan Dunham at this point. Evan Dunham might be the oldest man alive when he was fighting Herbert Burns. It was a really nice sequence, but like that Evan Dunham was so washed, it wasn't even funny. This fight reminds me, this is going to be really weird, but there's this like psychological test that they do with kids where they put a marshmallow in front of them and they say, hey, don't eat it. We'll be back in 2 minutes. And then we'll give you 2 more. And just to see like how good they are at kind of, the reasoning. Herbert Burns is the kid who would immediately eat his. And it's just great. Bill Algeo is more of a slow burn with his fighting style. He would wait and he'd get the reward at the end because I don't think these guys are even close to each other in skills. Like, I think Bill Algeo is so much more well-rounded than Herbert Burns. It's not even funny, for being honest, for all the reasons you brought up. He's a better volume striker. He has much better cardio, I would say. He doesn't have great takedown defense, but again, I know I brought it up in the earlier videos this week. It is improving, I do believe, as he's progressed throughout his career. I don't think it's something that he just isn't very good at and he hasn't been able to work on throughout his career. I just think, hey, when you're as good as Bill Algeo is in the other parts of his game, people are going to try to exploit your wrestling. And if Herbert Burns gets him down, he is strong enough and he is good enough to just get onto his back, choke him out. We all know how good his jiu-jitsu is. I just don't know how long Herbert Burns' power can last for to where he can get a stoppage, because if this goes into the 6th minute of the fight, let's say it's in really hard, they're going back and forth in the second round, is Herbert Burns going to look like the same fighter that he was in the first minute of the first round? I don't really think so. Whereas Bill Algeo, he might get into a bad position here or there, but as long as he doesn't get stopped at any singular moment, I do think he can keep on fighting through those and keep on fighting through the bad positions. Whereas for Herbert, it's kind of an all or nothing game. And I don't really love that all or nothing game at the UFC level, unless you do have a plan B or a plan C, because I agree with you. People get way too hyped up about Burns and that flying knee. They're like, wow, his striking must be good because of that. No, he just throws everything behind his shots because he knows no one's going to take him down because he's so good on the ground. But Daniel Pineda did kind of prove that if you get this guy tired and get him on his back, he's kind of like a turtle. It's really hard to flip him back over. So Herbert Burns definitely has a lot of chances to win this fight because of how lethal his jiu-jitsu is. But I just love the overall skill set of Bill Algeo compared to him.
Yeah, it's rough for the guy. I mean, you have a look at the fan vote. Fight Night picks on this one, 63% going with Bill Algeo. And if we have a look at the odds for this fight, I know they're like, when we made the video, the fight had just been announced, so there were lines on it, but Bill Algeo open -120, -211 or so. And if you look at Herbert Burns, sitting around a +173. So The fans are going with Algeo. I'm going with Algeo. Again, I do see it over there. Let's see in this chat. Malone Hart hits up the super chat again. Much appreciated. MVP of the show so far. Tay Britt is saying Burns to get the win. There's chat about who's the worst brother combo in MMA. Maybe the Dan Lozon to Joe. Yeah, there are some bad ones, and there's probably some ones that you never get to hear of. Juan Lopez saying Antonina, but I mean, Antonina did just win. So, listen.
Matt Serra, great. Mark Serra.
Oh, Malone Hart really doing his best in the super chat to get the support for Jung. So Matt, we'll move on forward. We got to start whipping through this card. We've got Ricky Simón, Jack Shore. This is one of my favorite fights of the weekend. I'm definitely going to be watching this one somehow, some way. Such a good fight. I mean, Ricky Simón, you look at the level ups that he's had throughout his career, primarily known as a wrestler when he kicked it off, and he's since added some boxing components to his game. Jack Shore's done the same thing. I mean, you go and you watch the highlight tapes, you watch the fights where he's winning with Cage Warriors. He's just, getting guys to the mat, getting for that back. And just like Herbert Burns, another rear naked choke type of guy, that's Jack Shore's MO. You make a move on the ground, he's going to slowly inch his way into position to get that back, to get the body triangle in, and then to snatch the neck. So in this fight, I do absolutely love what Ricky Simón's done in his game. I love the level ups. I love what he's been able to do, especially in this win streak that he's had. And again, a lot of people go, oh, we got knocked out by a jab against a 40-year-old Uriah Faber. As I mentioned, Jung had that fight against Sam Alvey. JSP had that fight against Joe Lozon. Sometimes people have fights like that. I'm all right with that. I can look past that to try and analyze a fight against Jack Shore. Jack Shore is not a power puncher. If he does anything, he tries to volume strike his way into a clinch. And I watched his last fight against Timur Valiev, where he struggled with the takedown defense and rocked him twice on the feet. And I like that. But for me, I do like Ricky Simón. The head movement's great. I think he's really done a good job of improving. But Matt, I can't have enough good things to say about Jack Shore. I'm just siding with my pick in this one because I want to move the show along.
Ricky Simón's like a dull knife, and Jack Shore's like the sharpened version of Ricky Simón. Like, Ricky Simón, a lot of the times, is going to do the same stuff Jack Shore's going to do, but he's going to win by decision if he wins. Jack Shore can knock you out on the ground. He can TKO you. He can submit you. There's many more avenues for him to win this fight via finish than Ricky Simón. And I agree with you. Maybe I myself, I'll raise it in front of the camera, do look too much into that Uriah Faber knockout loss, but still, Ricky Simón, that was one of those massive springboard type of a performances that he could have had, to where you're beating a former champion with a big name in his hometown. That's one of those star-making performances where he wasn't able to get over the hump up. And it's not that I dislike the game of Simón. It's just up until that Sun Sound knockout, like, I thought he lost to Ray Borg, if I'm being completely honest. I thought Ray Borg was able to...
It was a really close fight.
A lot of that fight, and he was doing a really good job with the takedown defense of Simón. That's honestly the fight I go back to more than the Faber one, because Ricky Simón was getting lit up on the feet by Ray Borg in that. And I know Ray Borg, he's a fast striker, he's squirrely, and he's hard to take down, but still, Simón's striking defense did not look very good in that performance. And if you get rid of the Asuncao win, it's okay. Well, he beat Gaetano Perello, who Jack Shore would absolutely mop. And he beat Brian Kelleher, who's a good fighter, but I don't necessarily put him on this level. I would be here for like the resurgence of Ricky Simón, but I do think this is Jack Shore's fight to win.
I think it's going to be a great fight. We'll mention the votes. 63% going with Jack Shore, 37% going with Ricky Simón. Star Smith Porter saying, yeah, I believe Ricky's going to beat him. Michael McConnell hitting us up on Facebook saying Ricky Simón KO'd his last opponent, didn't he? Michael, thanks for finding us over there. We exist on the Facebooks. Yeah, I was thinking about this last night, coming back from a wedding. I was thinking to myself, well, geez, you have Ricky Simón, you have Jack Shore. Who does the promotion want to win?
Must have been
Jack
a great
Shore.
thing.
They want Jack Shore to win. You know, he's a couple years younger. He's undefeated. You can market a guy out of Wales fairly easily. He's probably the guy. He doesn't talk very much, but it's probably Jack Shore. So who does the promotion want to win? Jack Shore. But again, I lean more to Ricky Simón. We'll move forward, Matt. We have Soriano taking on Dalcha Lungiambula. I'd love to hear from the people on this one because this is an odd fight. I mean, a lot of people are down on Dalcha because he's 1-3 in the UFC, but you just go back and watch the last fight against Cody Brundage, and he's beating the brakes off him until Brundage initiates a clinch and then pulls tight on a guillotine and gets it. So near the end of the round there, that was a good one for him. you look at Soriano, he's kind of been like a lifeless balloon just floating in the wind here his last two fights. Like he fights Brendan Allen and he can't figure out the distance early on, and then he just gets out jabbed for most of the fight while he tries to move forward. And his last time against Nick Maximov, it's a wet blanket. I mean, he couldn't do anything against Maximov. And Soriano, I mean, D3 All-American at Wartburg, you'd expect him to have a better time out against, you can't compare D3, D1, D2, and then JUCO, but that is what Nick Maximo did, JUCO and then into jiu-jitsu. I lean Soriano because he's the more proven commodity in the UFC. His hands are a little bit more polished, but he doesn't have that big extension pop at the end of his shots like Dalcha does. So this feels like the one that somebody's super confident in Soriano, and then he gets stopped. But I lean Soriano.
This fight to me is like a roulette table. You're going to be right or you're going to be wrong. That's it. It's just one or the other, red or black. And I think Soriano probably has the better chance because he does have pretty good wrestling defense. The problem with fighting a guy like Maximov is he's going to go for that initial takedown. He's going to grab your ankle, pull up on it, get into those, let's just call it what it is, get into some boring exchanges to where he's the one winning them. Don't get me wrong. Nick Maximov is a very good grappler, but it's not like dominant stuff to where he's damaging his opponent, really hurting him. Dalcha doesn't go for those types of takedowns whatsoever, and he's not that kind of grappler at all. Maximov is a phenomenal jiu-jitsu player.
So if you look at it for Dalcha, 2007 to 2009, Congolese national judo guy. And I mean, he's as highly credentialed as a guy can be in judo. But
he doesn't have an Olympic medal.
Yeah, Michael's question is, do I expect him to explode round 2, round 3 and get a finish? I mean, I haven't really seen it. The only fight I've seen is the Marcus Perez fight where he actually conserved his energy and then worked his takedowns and fought a game plan that you'd expect him to. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at the votes on this one, 73% of the fans have Soriano to get the win, and I have Soriano as well.
So do I. Again, this fight could be incredible. It might be a low volume one just because both guys do carry so much power in their hands, but I do think Soriano is the safer pick.
All right, so we'll move on to our next one. Miesha Tate, man, made the weight. You love to see it. So Miesha Tate coming, made the weight. Lauren Murphy had C. diff, and the doctors let her fight in a title fight. So, is there any recourse on something like that? Allegedly, that's not good.
If you think I'm a doctor or a commission member, you're out of your mind.
No, I mean if that's true, that's kind of wild. But we do look at this fight, Matt. Lauren Murphy showing up on point, on weight as well. Been training with a gaggle of great fighters at Elevation. Miranda Maverick's been the main training partner for this camp. I think Miranda Maverick's great, especially to match up stylistically with Tate. Now, if you're sparring with Maverick, she does kind of do those weird angle shots, and sometimes, she gets hit that way. But for Miesha Tate, you look at this, she's had this weird karate stance her last 2 fights that I don't think anybody else at Extreme Couture trains in. So we'll see how that one goes. I'm eager to see how this fight plays out. I like Tate with the grappling. I bet this ends up the old dirty, greasy split decision at flyweight and somebody's moving on, like a Joanne Calderwood type of fight.
I can see a world where that happens. I can see another world where Miesha Tate wins this 30-26, though. Just can go out there, really use her wrestling, can use her hands a little bit to get into range, and then just really go back to the Miesha Tate that we saw at bantamweight. Because, again, I really do think that the striking turn of Miesha Tate just comes down to her last 2 opponents. And you disagree with me if you'd like to, but if you look at who she's fought in her last 2, it's Marion Renault and Ketlin Vieira, 2 of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the division. And I know Marion Renault is older in her career, but again, she submitted who was it? She submitted Sarah McMahon off her back in one of the greatest women's MMA fights I've ever seen in my life. She dropped Sarah McMahon with a right hand, submits her. It was just a really nice sequence. That's not the type of fighter that you probably want to jump onto the ground with. Same thing with Ketlin Vieira. So for Miesha Tate, I do think we are going to see her go back to kind of her roots, if you will, employ a little bit more of a wrestling style game plan, because for Lauren Murphy, she does have good takedown defense, but I do expect her to be quite a bit smaller once they get into the cage. And I do think that the strength of Miesha Tate is really going to be an X factor at this division. But again, this is going to be sort of the fight that then helps me predict all the other Miesha Tate fights at flyweight, because you don't really know how good she's going to look until she finally does have this performance. I like her for the totality of her skill set. But again, this is one of those weird fights because even though she did look good on the scales, we don't really know how that's going to translate into kind of fight night action. So I do still like Miesha Tate, but I think I've thrown up enough red flags to be a little bit cautious.
Mario Barella is saying Miesha by decision. And if you have a look at Fight Night picks for this one, 71% going with Miesha Tate to get the win. I like Tate, but again, like Lauren Murphy, well-rounded. A lot of people are really down on her in the comment section. It's kind of wild. Like, you guys haven't fought for a title, and neither have I. So,
That's a bad excuse, though, Craig. Anybody says that about any sport.
Let's get really negative. But when I do look at Lauren Murphy, good opportunity, but she's coming off a tricky loss against Valentina Shevchenko a very long time ago. So Patrick Moran is saying Murphy is live, and not much could be true. I do have Tate here, but we'll see how this one plays out. Matt, next fight of the weekend. Like, is this it? Is this better than the Saskatchewan Rough Rider? Should I just pull my phone out as the plays are going on? We'll see.
How
but Shane Burgos
disrespectful.
taking on Bella Quebec Canada's own Charles Jourdain. And for Air Jourdain, I mean, just wants to fly like an eagle till he's free. Get the win over Shane Burgos, bring back that money to Quebec. Great opportunity for both these guys. Obviously, we know how good Charles Jourdain is, all three levels from his southpaw stance when he likes to whip those kicks out there. Great leg kicks, great body kicks, great head kicks. What more could you ask for? He switches over to orthodox and tries to throw boxing combinations. They're a little janky, but that also helps out. I don't say that as a negative. They are from odd angles. They are a lot of fun that way. A guy who doesn't really deal with pressure all that well, but sometimes he will bite down on the mouthpiece, or he kind of shells up a little awkwardly, and it's not really the greatest of look, but defensively it's not the worst. But when you look at this one, has Father Time just tapped a 31-year-old Shane Burgos on the shoulder and said, okay, bud, time to go home. We're going to find out. Great opportunity at home in New York to get this one. But I love the fight. I think it's a great matchup.
It is an incredible fight. And this fight for me comes down to two separate moments. It's A, who lands the biggest shot first? Because if Jourdain hurt Shane Burgos, I think there's a world where, and I think you'll appreciate this comparison. Remember when Arnold Allen fought Dan Hooker and just swarmed him, like went after him immediately, knew that he was coming down in weight, knew that he was probably a depleted version of himself, and thought, hey, if I just go after him right now, he probably won't be able to get out of neutral and he'll never be able to get started. And that was a great game plan for Arnold Allen. He blew the doors off Dan Hooker. I could see Shane Burgos doing something very similar to Charles Jourdain. It's, hey, I've been in a lot of hard fights. Let's just try to get him out of there quick. Because Burgos, he's not a fighter who I think can fight at such a high pace to where he's going to be burnt out in the last round. Like, he just has great cardio no matter what, and he throws an insane amount of punches to where I'm never really worried about Shane Burgos' volume, no matter when he starts to get into his rhythm. Like, he'd get into his rhythm midway through the second round. I'm not worried about it. He'd get into his rhythm early, and I'm still not worried about his output by the end of the third. But if Jourdain hits him with a big shot, almost like Arnold Allen did with Dan Hooker, and dazes him early, I do worry about what version of Burgos we're going to get and how much tread has come off the tires. Because yes, he's only 31 years old. He's only had, 17 pro MMA fights. His 17 fights are worth like 70 to some. Like, Nick Maximov could fight 150 MMA fights. It would not take the amount of damage that Shane Burgos has already taken throughout his young career. And all throughout the week, people are posting gifs and stuff and highlights on Twitter just to get people hyped up for the fights. He ate some shots against Josh Emmett that would kill me. I'm not even kidding. There are some shots that Josh Emmett lands where it's full overhand as Shane Burgos is trying to throw his own shot, where it twists his whole body around and he just keeps on marching forward. It's a level of durability that I don't think I will ever fully comprehend, because that's what Shane Burgos is made of. I think Charles Jourdain is also made of that same stuff, though, and that's why this fight should be so good. But for my prediction, I am going to pick Shane Burgos. He's just been in there against better fighters. And stylistically, these guys do match up very well with each other, but I do think the overall output of Burgos is going to be his X factor in this matchup. But if he is even a 90% of himself with his durability, I can see Jourdain knocking him out with one shot.
I'd seen the comment about, the reach, and you look at it for Shane Burgos, he's got 6.5 inches reach on Charles Jourdain. But you got to break that one down a little bit more. You can't just say the guy has more reach, because Stefan Struve had more reach than everybody. And Stefan Struve did beat Stipe Miocic, but never won a title and never cracked the top 5. So when you do look at this one, it's, can Shane Burgos establish his boxing range and turn Charles Jourdain into a boxer? Or can Jourdain start to work his kicks to the fact that Shane Burgos can't figure out what level to defend? And then the fight is fought at Charles Jourdain's range. So we'll see how that one plays out. Matt, the fans at Fight Night Picks, 64% going with Shane Burgos to get the win. And Patrick saying muffin hands Jourdain. I don't know if I'd say that.
Here's the thing. I don't often say this, Charles Jourdain is a good follow on social medias. I think he's a good fighter who uses his platform very well. Listen, unranked fighters, I don't know if you're watching this or not. You're probably not. Use your social media like Charles Jourdain. He's an average unranked fighter who is much more famous for that because of his fighting style and due to his social media output. So look at what Charles Jourdain is doing inside and outside of the cage, and please take tips because it does really help you in the long run.
Just become a GIF master. All right, Matt. Next fight, Matt Schnell, Sumudaerji. I don't have much on this one, guy. I really don't. I mean, this is a fight in the flyweight division. Matt Schnell's ranked 8th, which doesn't make any sense. Like, you look at he beat Tyson Nam by split decision in a fight he won. I thought he won 2 rounds comfortably to 1. And then you look at the fight that he won before that against Jordan Espinoza. I get it. There's not a lot of flyweights out there, but Matt Schnell at 8, really? And I know he's lost to good fighters, but like, Buppa, A, what are we doing here? But B, this is a sketch fight because Sumudaerji's been out for over a year. He had the knee injury that forced him out of a fight. He was supposed to take on Manel Kopp a little bit ago. Nevada State Athletic Commission made that fight just disappear. So it comes down to this one. Can Sumudaerji straight shots beat Matt Schnell? Can Matt Schnell's overall game beat Sumudaerji? We're going to find out this weekend. But this is one of those ones where, like, I don't often say this. Like, I'm breaking out the cashews. I'm going to go for a little bit of a break. I'm going to go watch a Rough Riders game.
Qatar. Granite. That's what this is. Here, this is a really fun fight. For Sumudaerji, I like his footwork, and I really do think that that's going to help him a lot in this fight. Not for striking's sake, but it's something we talk about a lot. What's the best way to defend a takedown? Just never let your opponent get close to you in the first place. Because guess what? Here's the really cool thing about wrestling. It doesn't mean anything if you can't touch your opponent. Wild to think about that, I know. But for Sumudaerji, he moves his feet extremely well. He's someone who can get inside and outside. If I'm being honest, he probably moves his feet a little bit too much, and I think that will probably catch him if he does ever fight, you know, the Kai Kara Francis of the division, the Brandon Morenos, of course, are fighters who can take advantage of that because they're just going to stay in the pocket. They're going to make you come to them, and they're going to be able to counter you with bigger shots. I just don't know if Schnell is willing to eat a shot from the outside to then try to counter it, because for Schnell, he's a good fighter. He has good striking. He has great grappling. Like, he's an extremely well-rounded fighter. But he's someone who, there's almost like a delay between, okay, I got to think the game and then I got to do the game. And for Schnell, I do worry about him with some of these in-betweens. And one of those big in-betweens is, how do I incorporate my striking into my wrestling? I think that's going to be tough with the movement of Sumudaerji.
Yeah, I see the comment over there from CTM Agug saying Schnell about to blow up a lot of parlays. Kind of feels like that for me. You have a look at Fight Night picks, 60% going with Sumudaerji to 40% with Schnell. Obviously, he had that 1-round fight of the night his last time out against Brandon Royval, where he dropped him, and then he ended up getting finished. But yeah, going with Sumudaerji. You're in agreement on this one before we move forward?
I do think this is going to be a really good fight, though. But yeah, I have Sumudaerji.
All right, Matt. Next fight, we have Li Jingliang taking on Muslim Salikhov, my guy. And then a lot of people with my guy, they're all surprised that I don't take Muslim Salikhov. I think this is going to be a great fight. A lot of people look at the highlight reel of Muslim Salikhov and base everything off of that. They watch the Nordin Taleb like knockout, and they get wild about it. They look at that short little right hand that he had up against the cage against Trinaldo in the first round of his last fight, and the follow-up flurry that he had to drop him. There's a lot of great things to like about Muslim Salikhov. The one thing that you don't like is the fact that he's 38 years old. Like, he's 38 years old, and my God, like, he still has the power. His speed was still there in his last fight, but also consider he's taking on a 42-year-old Francisco Trinaldo, not some spry chicken. So I know that they're both, you know, freaks of the universe, and they're still doing it at an advanced age. He's the greatest Wushu Sanda fighter ever. He's 18-2 in MMA. I can't take anything away from him. Again, he's a guy that I reference a lot. So you guys know where I'm at with this one. Li Jingliang makes odd mistakes in certain fights, has weird, tricky path. He's a guy that stands low, and then he'll do the duck into some of his shots, and I'll duck out of frame and get blurry. But I do like Li Jingliang in this spot, and I'm eager to see if either guy decides to wrestle offensively. I think that could be a big X factor in this one.
I think Li Jingliang is going to get this in a boxing range, and Muslim Salikhov is going to have no idea what to do with him there. I really do, because here's the thing. At kicking range, Salikhov can have a lot of success, because what he likes to do is he'll set you up with his kicks at range, force you to become uncomfortable, and then you close the distance rapidly. He can catch you with a really good counter shot. Well, you're probably not going to outpower Li Jingliang in the kick category. He has incredible leg kicks. He has really good body kick, too. I do think that Salikhov has a better variety of strikes, don't get me wrong. But the problem is, he doesn't really land a lot of those crazy strikes. And if this does get into boxing range, it will eliminate a lot of the offense of Muslim Salikhov. And I think that unless he can land a big shot in the in-between, almost like a Bobby Nash did. And that's something I have to go back to. Like, Li Jingliang has incredible power with his hands. Once he does get on the inside with guys, he has really good, just pure boxing combinations. He likes that uppercut left hook. It's very Mike Tyson-esque. It's just, if you watch a lot of boxing, you see that be thrown 1,000 times every fight. Li Jingliang is phenomenal with some of those combos. And I don't like the hesitancy that we've seen out of Muslim Salikhov out of late. I know Trinaldo, he was able to hurt him early, but that was because Trinaldo rushed in on him. I think if Li Jingliang just stays really patient, forces Salikhov to just sort of wait in a mirror and try to time him, that's when Jingliang can hit him with a flurry, get him up the cage, and consistently damage him throughout this fight. Because I would say the best performance that either one of these guys have had in their whole career would be Li Jingliang's win over Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos. He marched him down, didn't care about his power whatsoever, and the second he got into boxing range was really able to land some nice combinations against him, and I could see this fight going a very similar manner.
It should be a fun one. And I mean, we look at the votes on this fight because this has been another contentious one. And look at that, 57% going with the Leech, 43% with the King of the Kung Fu. And let's have a look at the odds. Li Jingliang, when we made the video, was, and I want to make sure I get it right, around a plus 148, plus 134 right now. And for Muslim Salikhov, minus 160. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Go ahead.
If I may, I need the winner of this to fight this new version of Jake Matthews that, like, is the most Bangkok ready man we've ever seen in our whole entire life. The second Jake Matthews got hurt by Andre Fiallo, he decided to become one of the great strikers of our generation. So I would love to see the rematch between him and Li Jingliang because their first fight was really good. And him versus Jake Matthews versus Muslim Salikhov would also be a really fun fight.
It was a fight in the night. So yeah, okay, both of us going with Li Jingliang. We got 2 fights left, Matt. You get an hour and 15 minutes before the fights. Michelle Waterson's taking on Amanda Lemos. And listen, the gosh darn UFC and the gosh darn websites out there, UFC stats, Fight Metric, UFC.com, everybody said it's going to be a flyweight fight. So I ran away and said, okay, it's going to be a flyweight fight. Well, Michelle Waterson had that weird one off against Marina Rodriguez at 125. She has had fights at 125. Amanda Lemos, as we know, bantamweight to strawweight. It's in fight lore. So we go that way. Ball juice of Zeus. Big time super chat. Did you know that limes are just unripened lemons? Keep up the good work, boys. Does that have a bearing to the show?
I don't even. Is that true though? Can we get someone? I don't think it is, but no one's ever told me that before. So this is the first.
Yeah. Okay. So apparently we have to get a botanist with Fight Night picks to get on that one. But when it comes down to this fight, it actually is at strawweight. So mistake on our part, but what the frig? What the frig, UFC? Why are we doing this? So the other thing I have to say, Matt, before I let you go, Michelle Waterson. Michelle Gomez Waterson? Waterson Gomez? We're switching it up. Look out for the movie Havoc. Big knee injury, so she couldn't fight Amanda Hebus this spring. Wouldn't talk about it. Wouldn't really touch on what the scoop was, so don't love that. Amanda Lemos, I don't like her cardio at 115 pounds at all. I don't. I know she had all those first round finish wins, and those are great against unranked women's strawweights. There's not a lot of them. Didn't like the way she looked after.
Basically one of those at this point, though.
Didn't like the way that she looked against obviously Angela Hill. She almost finished her in the first round, and then round 2, round 3, bad, real bad. Don't like Michelle Waterson's sidekick, and obviously the go back to fight is the one that when she took on Rose Namajunas, where she goes to throw the sidekick and then just gets punched in the side of her head and dropped. So I do like Lemos with the pressure, with the size. But yeah, I mean, this is an odd fight.
Does anybody think Waterson Gomez is going to win at all? Here's the thing. We talk about this sometimes on the channel, but how motivation is a very key factor for a lot of fighters, for athletes in general. They made the greatest sports documentary of all time. It's called The Last Dance. And it's just about a guy who's so good at his sport that he has to find added motivation along the way. So let's put ourselves in Michael Jordan's shoes really quick, or Michelle Waterson, Amanda Lemos' shoes. Amanda Lemos every day is fighting to become a world champion. She's trying to get main events. She's trying to get notoriety. She's trying to become a skilled fighter so she can get that title. Michelle Waterson is on her way out of the sport. she has a lot of losses. She was a really good fighter at one point, but like every great athlete, you do start to decline as you get older with your age. And for Waterson, she's 36 years old. She's been in a lot of really tough fights at this point. She's jumped around weight classes. That's not easy on your body. She's taken time off to have her daughter. Like, there are so many red flags if you're trying to pick Michelle Waterson in this fight that either don't put money on it at all or just pick Amanda Lemos, because for Waterson, I don't really know where she fits into this whole entire division right now. And the GOAT Ramus, I agree, Kyle Lowry over everything. But for Waterson, I don't think she's going to be able to sidekick her way to a split decision in this fight, because there's real repercussions when you're striking with Amanda Lemos. Whereas with Michelle Waterson, she can pitter patter you to a win. She can go for some takedowns here or there, but I just do not think that she can damage Lemos sufficiently enough to get a decision. I do agree with you, though. If this was a 5-round fight, I do think that there'd be an avenue for Michelle Waterson to pitter patter, maybe pick up those last 2 rounds and eke out one of the first 3. But luckily, co-main event, this is not a 5-round fight. I do think Amanda Lemos, this is her fight to lose without a doubt.
Adam Riley hitting up the super chat saying, for the best Canadian fighter, Jourdain. And yeah, I mean, Amanda Lemos minus 307 favorite right now. 75% of the Fight Night Picks fans have Lemos to get the win. I have her as well. And then we get excited, Matt, because it's the main event. We have Brian Ortega taking on Yair Rodriguez. And I want to hear from everybody over in the comment section. I threw a vote up there, and 70% of the fans here in the chat on YouTube are going with Ortega to get the win. 72% on our Instagram have Ortega to get the win. So listen, it's much appreciated. The super chats have been insane throughout this show. Thank you so much for the support. If you can't toss a super chat, just toss a like. It takes 2 seconds. But we have Brian T. City Ortega taking on Yair Rodriguez, a couple guys that have main evented multiple shows, fight of the nights galore. And if you look at it for Brian Ortega, what's his biggest statement win? When he was the first guy to knock out Frankie Edgar. I know many have since, but like that was impressive, very impressive at the time. For Yair Rodriguez, obviously it's a show stopping. I'm losing the fight. Let's play touch butt in the park and hug a bunch in the final minute of the 5th round in Denver against Korean Zombie, and then up elbow. I mean,
if that's all you remember from that fight is the high fives, you're really doing it.
No, hear me out. There's posters in MMA that you never forget. It's the knockout win for Joaquin Buckley over Impa Kasanganay. It's full extension right hand Cody Garbrandt against Rafael Assunção. Like, there's some knockouts they just don't leave you. Masvidal Askren's another one. So we do look at this fight, Matt. Obviously, it's not a mismatch stylistically, but what I'm looking for is it's a clash of styles. You have Rodriguez with the flashy striking. Obviously, he's polished up, or really tried to polish up the takedown defense with Team Izzy and Izzy Wrestling. You look at it for Ortega, likewise, he's really polished it up with the striking. And we know how lights out his jiu-jitsu is. It's just oil and water in this one, and it's which one wins out.
This is an incredible fight. It is wild to me, though, that Brian Ortega only has 1 actual win on his career in the last 4 years. That is a little concerning. Maybe I'm the only one who thinks that it is, but like that Frankie Edgar win was so long ago now that it is hard to remember, like, oh, wow, he was the first guy to knock out Frankie Edgar, because Frankie's had a whole entire career at 135 pounds since they had that original fight. Brian Ortega's got his ass kicked twice, and he looked really good against the Korean Zombie. Now, I know that's the worst way to try to sell the Brian Ortega package, but if you just look at his record on a piece of paper, that's what it's going to tell you. You do have to look at how he did in those losses, though, to actually tell the full story of Brian Ortega, because against Max Holloway, yes, he got beat very bad, but still, there were some good moments in that fight where he gets hit by big shots. That was where his boxing was starting to show the improvements. It wasn't at where it's at today, of course, but you're starting to see, hey, Brian Ortega can hang with guys on the feet and on the ground too. I just don't know if his boxing is going to be good enough against Yair Rodriguez, because what I do like about Brian Ortega is he's one of the first fighters that realized, okay, I'm very tall for my weight class. I have really good boxing. So guys are probably going to try to get on the inside of it. How do I counter that? Use elbows. It works really well when you're a really big guy. Brian Ortega does have phenomenal elbows. We saw the spinning elbow land against the Korean Zombie. It dropped him. He tried going for it a couple of times against Max Holloway. It sort of landed one time, but it was just a lot of misses. It's just what I do like out of Ortega, though, is he found out a part of his game that works for him. He figured out fighters, found a way to counter that part of his game. So he didn't just sit there and think, oh no, they've completely taken away my boxing. He found another way to then fix what his opponents were doing. That means that Brian Ortega is not only getting better, but he's also thinking the game too. And I think that that's the last X factor that a lot of these fighters get before they can actually get a title. So I know I've just spent like the last 5 minutes talking about how Brian Ortega has only won 1 time in the last 4 years. But again, those 2 losses are incredibly impressive performances, even though they don't win the record. What?
Jeremy Stevens beat Yair Rodriguez in the third round of their fight, and that was his last win.
I understand. And then you haven't given me time yet, Craig. Yair Rodriguez is in the same boat. But the wild thing about this is we've been marketing this all week about how this is the best main event fight night card we've seen in a very long time. It is wild that two guys coming off losses are still willing to give this to us. And this is my overall point. 145 is the best division in MMA, I think. I think 145 has officially become, because right now it kind of reminds me of what the lightweight division used to be, where the lightweight division, the top five weren't only great fighters, they had pretty good names too. And when you look at 145 pounds, I do feel like it's starting to have a very similar wave right now. You have guys like Brian Ortega, Yair, Max Holloway, even Josh Emmett, Calvin Kattar. Like, these are guys who have main evented multiple fight nights before. So this is an incredible fight. And you're right. Yair Rodriguez's last win is over Jeremy Stevens, who isn't even in the organization anymore. But I really do think that the improvements that he made in the Max Holloway fight are really going to help him in this fight too, because his boxing has taken a level up from the Jeremy Stevens fight to this one. Stevens, he was very kick heavy with his offense on the outside. And when Stevens was able to get it into boxing range, he didn't have much of an answer for it. Whereas in the Max Holloway fight, Yair was going like punch for punch with Max Holloway. He did use a lot of his kicks, but he hurt his foot early, so he wasn't really able to use the whole variety of his toolbox. I think this is an incredible fight, though. That's basically the big point I'm trying to convey. This is one of the best fights of the year, and if at the end of the year we're doing a year-end show and this is our fight of the year, I would not be surprised whatsoever.
Yeah, and Alexander Volkanovski is right there, like 1A, 1B with Jose Aldo for GOAT status right now. Like, he is so darn good. Pablo, no parlay today. Pablo, I'm in Nova Scotia, pal. No, like we're doing a show remotely. No, not today. But listen, I mean, so many people tuning in. The chat's been going insane. And when you do look at this fight, again, multiple avenues for Ortega. Seems like the fans are really going with Ortega on this one. But for Yair Rodriguez, we have seen that level up, if we even thought it was possible, in his striking in the short range, because we knew how good he was at kicking range. We knew how he could use his hands as well, but kicks are definitely a big part of it. So split on the pick on this one. Matt, as we always do with Fight Name Picks question mark kicks, we're going to go back quickly. Your mic is muted.
The winner of this gets a title shot, right? Without a doubt.
Yeah, I think they've kind of laid that one out. Maybe if Ortega wins, they go, hey, fight Josh Emmett. But if Yair Rodriguez wins, you're off to the races.
I would agree.
So I would say that's the way they're going to go. People are having, an argument in the chat about what the best division is. For me, I like bantamweight, but listen, this division's very good as well. So Matt, we'll flip it on back through the entire card. Penne versus Ducote. Both of us with Ducote in this one.
Yep.
Stoltzfus and Grant. I've got Stoltzfus to get his first one in the UFC. It worked for me a couple of weeks ago when we had Yulia Stolyarenko. So yeah, but I do have Stoltzfus here.
I got Dwight Grant with negative confidence at this point.
Dustin Jacoby Jung for probably there's a tie for like most competitive fight this weekend. I think this is one of them. I've got Dustin Jacoby, but this should be a great fight.
I agree. I'm really excited for this fight, but I do have Jacoby.
Herbert Burns, Bill Algeo in all of the weirdness. Adam Riley hitting up a big super chat. 5 more for the best Canadian duo in the Allen Bros. Thanks for the great insight. Week in, week out, boys. Adam, thank you. I get Bill Algeo. This should be an interesting fight.
I also have Algeo, but again, if Herbert Burns was able to get him down early in the first round while they're dry, that's a pretty dangerous position room to be in, but I still like Senior Perfecto.
Ricky Simone, Jack Shore, split on this one. I like Simone, you've got Shore, but this should be a really good fight too.
Yeah, and this is a really important fight for both guys. It might kind of be flying under the radar, but if Simone's able to get the win, he's kind of back on track to pre-Uriah Faber. And if Jack Shore is able to get this win, by far the biggest name on his record, especially in the UFC up until this date. So really important fight for both guys.
Pulse Reloaded asking about Mike Rodriguez again. He got cut from the UFC. He's fighting with like CFFC. I saw he just won a fight here a couple weeks ago. Puna Soriano's taking on Dalcha Lungiambula. Going with Puna. Not a lot of confidence, but going with Puna Soriano here.
I've also got Soriano.
Lauren Murphy, Miesha Tate, both of us going with former bantamweight champ in Mahashata. No, it's Miesha Tate.
I'll be interested to see if she can get even a title shot, though, at 125. That would be cool to see the former champion at 135 go down fighting Valentina, but that'd be a tough fight against Shevchenko.
Shane Burgos, Charles Jourdain for fight of the night on paper of the week. Shane Burgos, again, amazing fight.
This is an incredible fight. I also have Shane Burgos, but like Charles Jourdain comes to fight, and so does Shane Burgos. This can be incredible.
Just let me bang, bro. Matt Schnell, Sumudaerji. Sumudaerji on the straight shots, full game. Matt Schnell. Like he has all of the tools, and usually I go with those fighters, but I've got Sumudaerji here. Not a ton of confidence in this one.
I agree with you 100%. Matt Schnell is the more well-rounded fighter. I just think he's going to play Sumudaerji's game quite a bit more throughout this fight. So I'm picking Sumudaerji. But again, should be a fun fight at flyweight.
Joel Rogers, love you boys. Matt, enjoy the card. Craig, enjoy the game, amigo. Then yes, I've been swayed by Puna. Don't let us do that to you. Puna Soriano lost his last 2 fights. Li Jingliang, Muslim Salikhov, going with the leech in this one. It's a tricky fight for him.
One of these weird fights where it could end up as like fight of the night, could end up as, oh my God, I can't believe this is on the main card type of fight, but I do have the leech.
All right, and we have Waterson, Gomez, Lemos, and a battle of old strawweights. I'll go with Amanda Lemos.
That's the thing. They are both old, but Lemos has taken a significant amount less damage throughout her career, and that is important. For Waterson, she's been in wild fights against some of the best fighters in the division. I even go back to the Joanna and Jacek main event that she had. Like, she got pieced up by Joanna bad in that fight to where, like, you're kind of worried about Michelle Waterson afterwards, so I do like Lemos with her power.
And then in the main event, we're split on the pick. You've got Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez. I've got T-City, you've got El Pantera, but it should be an interesting one. And again, potential title ramifications with this one.
Oh, 100%. This is probably going to, I know we were both really big fans of Jourdain versus Burgos. Like, that is going to be an incredible fight. This is like that if there was 10 more minutes of it. That's how good this is going to be. So I'm incredibly excited to see these guys square off for 5 rounds. And hopefully we don't get a quick finish, because that's the thing. If Brian Ortega or Yair Rodriguez want to try to beat Alexander Volkanovski, we're going to need to see them for more than just like a 1 or 2 minute spurt, because Volkanovski is as durable as they come. He has great cardio. He has great output. So I really think this is going to be an important fight to kind of figure out, okay, how are they going to mesh stylistically with the champion if Ortega is able to get the rematch, or if Yair is able to get his first fight against him? But I do have Yair.
Matt, a rare fight day where I have nothing going on with the fights. I'm not going to be watching the fights. I'm going to be at the old Touchdown Atlantic. We're both very busy. I was away all week this week. I'm away all week next week. So the videos for next weekend with a big time main event. You got Blades, you got Aspinall, and then you got a bunch of fighters from the UK that are probably supposed to win all their respective fights. Don't necessarily think I'm going to pick all of them, but you look at some of these matchups, and I mean, like Jai Herbert taking on Kyle Nelson. What UFC? What, like, you look at another one, Nicholas Dalby taking on my guy Claudio Silva, the Zebo of MMA, as I'm going to touch on in those videos. There's some interesting matchups, but there's some ones where you think the guy should win or the gal should win, but maybe not so.
And just for anyone out there who is a boxing fan, I know there's a few of them who watch this channel. Ryan Garcia is fighting Javier Fortuna tonight. If you're looking for something to watch, should be a really fun fight. Ryan Garcia is a pretty big star in the sport. You might not be a fan of him. You might like him. You might not, but he always puts on a really good show. So if you're looking for something to watch later on after the MMA fights are over, I would highly recommend watching Fortuna versus Garcia.
All right, Matt. So look out for Blades Aspinall. We'll see when we can get it out. It should hopefully be at the start of the week at some point. Make sure you like the video. The chat has been insane this week. I want to thank everybody that threw it a super chat. Like I said, I'm going to be going to that football game. So Matt, really looking forward to the fight week that's ahead. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say,
let's get into it.